All right, take number 4 probably of cellular respiration. And first we have glycolysis. So glycolysis is interesting because it's the only part in cellular respiration that is universal, which means it doesn't require O2 to happen. But if O2 isn't present, it simply becomes anaerobic, which isn't great. It generates a lot less stuff. So what happens is, if anaerobic respiration happens like in an animal, the animal will generate lactic acid. But if it happens in a bacteria, think, I don't know, yeast or something like that, it'll produce ethanol, which ain't great, but whatever, right? So glycolysis, how it works is first it takes glucose, which is C6H12O6, right? So it takes in the glucose, and we have this little enzyme here. And this is activated by ATP. It's activated by 2 ATP. And then we feed it, and it spits out 4 ATP. So this gets us a total of plus 2 ATP, which is good because ATP is fundamentally stored energy. So then what happens to glucose is it splits into what's called, what's the name? Right, pyruvate. So we take this, and when this happens, the electrons leave. So then the pyruvate goes all the way from glycolysis to pyruvate oxidation, is where, glycolysis happens in the cytoplasm. So pyruvate oxidation has this little enzyme here, which this is the only enzyme, one of the only enzymes in this process that we actually know the name for, well, I actually know the name for, which is coenzyme A. So pyruvate comes down, and it's split by coenzyme A into acetyl, to acetyl, from pyruvate to acetyl, right? And then acetyl and coenzyme A mix, which makes acetyl-CoA, which is important. And with each instance of pyruvate turning into acetyl-CoA, CO2 is released, hence, because we produce carbon dioxide when we breathe out, so yeah. Then we get to the Krebs cycle, which the acetyl-CoA is released into here, and coenzyme A just drops it off because it doubles as a fundamental taxi. And it's essentially a big cycle that goes round and round and produces a bunch of stuff. In other words, like it produces ATP, it takes NAD and makes it into NADH, it takes oxygen and turns it into carbon dioxide, just all of that beautiful stuff. So eventually, more ATP is produced. And then here comes the fun part. So, we also get, from one of the reactions, FADH2. So NADH and FADH2, what they do is they essentially donate energy to the final process. Oh, by the way, pyruvate oxidation and Krebs cycle happen in the mitochondrial matrix. So then the final process we have here is the electron transport chain, or ETC. And this is made up of 5 main bricks. So enzyme 1, enzyme 2, enzyme 3, enzyme 4, and enzyme 5. And then the fun part is this big squiggly bit, which is ATP synthase. So that's a lot of fun, right? So stuff goes through all these enzymes, and that produces a lot of energy. And that energy gives us a lot of hydrogen ions. And then oxygen from, obviously, breathing in or whatever, comes to the H+ ions, and that gives us H2O, in other words, water, which kind of helps the flow of things work a bit and power it. The electron transport chain, if the whole process of cellular respiration were like into a power plant, it would essentially be the flame that keeps things going. Yeah, so that's fun. Then throughout the whole electron transport chain, which is actually on this cell membrane itself, this generates about 32-ish ATP. Which obviously, like I said, is stored energy and stored in the fundamental energy bit bank of the cell. So this kind of goes up in energy, unlike photosynthesis, because unlike photosynthesis where they have chemiosmosis, we got reverse chemiosmosis, which as chemiosmosis, the energy level goes down, the energy level actually goes up here, and that generates more energy as, like I said, ATP is literally energy. So it's reverse to photosynthesis in the fact that it takes in oxygen and produces carbon dioxide, and unlike photosynthesis, which takes in carbon dioxide and releases oxygen,